Good afternoon. Hand today is going to be Ace Jack. This is going to be a little bit harder hand to review. We're seven-handed right now. This is a 10 NL game. I've got Ace Jack off. And we have Under the Gun Villain, open raises to 3. I say this is difficult because, his stats, 20, 25, 14, looks to be a reasonable player, but when we look at his actual stats, he's got 37 or 36% raise first in stat from early position. He's been had 13 of these hands, 11 in the hands he's raised, and that's unusually high for most people. You compare that to mid position, 0 out of 10 raised first in. His cutoff, 0 out of 2 raised first in. His button, 1 out of 3 raised first in. So either this guy has a strategy where he takes advantage of the fact that everyone thinks Under the Gun's tight, so he's raising a much wider range, or this guy's just getting hit with cards in this spot. So, which one is it? It's tough to say. I think what I'm going to go with is like 16%, 16.6% VPIP range. I think it's got most of the broadways here, suited aces. I think it's wide enough to say that these hands could definitely have been hitting him hard. And then it's on me. So do we judge this guy as an early position player at seven-handed, or do we say this is more of a mid-position player? Some of our stats, a lot of our stats, have been kind of broken down to, mid-position is that low jack and the hijack spot, but do we consider him to be more of like a mid-position player compared to Under the Gun? So like 3 better call versus mid position player, Ace Jack is in our range here, but versus an early position it's not. So I think here we've got a 3 better call range, and I think what we look at is we would probably raise him. What's his fold to 3 bet stat? 0 out of 1. I think both these players are reasonable. I think what we could do is kind of raise him with some of our stronger hands here, and then throw in a couple more of our calls, because we know Villain's going to be probably a little bit wider. Maybe even King 9 there. Something like this could be our calling range. And then we would have 3 bet like some of those, maybe in pocket pairs, maybe even 3 bet like 10 jack, 10 9, and leave maybe a gappers in here versus this player, just to kind of play against him, because if he is playing this strategy where they take advantage of people's perceived tightness of that early position player, then our hand, we should be ahead quite a bit, especially with Ace Jack. So I called here, right or wrong. I made that decision thinking that he's probably overextending himself, and I'm going to play the Ace Jack in position against this player. Flop comes down to Ace Queen 3. I think that's a 3 eclipse. And now Villain bets. Now his C-bet stats, out of position 2 out of 2, 1 out of 2 when he's in position. He seems to be C-betting quite a bit. And when we think about what is he C-betting, he's probably C-betting a lot of hands. Probably 100% of his range is probably what he's doing here. Doing it with Ace should hit Under the Gun really hard, so no big surprise. The question is, should we raise or should we just call? I think fold's out of the question. So the benefits of just calling is that we keep this player in, so he could fire another barrel on hands that say like King, Queen, King, Jack, King 10. Downside of calling is that if he doesn't have anything, or if he's on a draw, he's probably just going to check and maybe even fold on the turn. If he's got a hand like King, Queen, Queen, Jack, he could bet now, and then he could freeze up on, check the turn and possibly even fold to a turn bet. Whereas I think that this is going to be an advantage of raising it here, if we raise it, I think king, queen, queen, jack probably calls at least once because these players have a hard time folding. So we could get our bet in now, knowing that he'll probably just fold to a second barrel on the turn. Now, if he calls, we can always check behind on the turn, and then on the river, if he checks us, we could bet, and maybe we get a call out of him, like a king, queen. Just kind of have to know the player type. So if we look at our range here, I have to think about what's our raising range, what's our calling range. I think set's going to be raising. I think top pair is going to be raising, and I think, let's see here. Typically, with our raising, we're looking at kind of like we're looking at vulnerable hands. I don't think we would raise a king jack here or jack 10 because we're on the draw. I think we don't want to raise and then get re-raised and have to give up our equity. So at least like the gut shots, 2-card backdoor flush draws, I think are hands that we would typically call with. So typically call with those. Let's get those out of the way. And then I kind of think pocket pair below the board, maybe we throw in as a call. Our protection range, I think our raising range would likely be something like this. 6s, 7s, 8s, or maybe like 9s, 8s, 7s. I think that's going to be our raising range here, along with our top pair plus our top pair in a set. So we're going to be a little bit more value oriented, but what we don't want to do is we don't want to give like a king jack or let's say a jack 10 free card, or just this 3.7 big blinds and catch a 10 or a jack on the turn and be our mid pair. We don't want to throw all of them in there because then we're going to be like way too bluff heavy here. So 6s to 9s might be appropriate, and that would be it. I think our calling range will include all of our middle pairs, all of our like king, queens, queen 10. We're either behind, like way behind to the ace, or we're going to be ahead to all of his junk. I think we could play that accordingly. Same thing with pocket pair below the board, and then our gut shots and our 2-card backdoor flush draws. Now with our 2-card backdoor flush draws, we're going to get rid of our pairs. So what do? I just called here. So what I'm going to do is get rid of those hands that I said we would be raising. So I think this was kind of a spot where I think I should have called. Or I'm sorry, I should have raised. And instead I just called. So we're going to go with the range that had we just called. So I think this would be kind of like a calling range for us. So like right off the bat, I think I should have raised. I should have probably raised this up to 10 or 11 big blinds. Maybe 12. No, 12 big blinds, 12 to 14, something like that. If he calls, then I think we fire again on the turn. As long as it's not a queen. I'd say a king, queen, jack is probably what we would. King, queen, jack, and 10 probably. Actually, jack is good for us, so we would bet jack. So king, queen, 10. If one of those cards come, we would check behind on the turn. Any other card, I think we would fire again. So 9 comes. So this would be a barreling card for us. Yeah, he might have 10 jack. He catches open ender. Hey, that's great for us because that means he's going to call our next bet. So had we bet, let's say 13, that would be 26 plus 26 plus another 11, so 37. So at that time, 37, what we could probably do is put him all in, put him to a decision for all of his chips because he would only have maybe slightly more than the pot. We could always go like half pot and try to get him, you know, as a hope you call, but I think just shoving all in might be the better play. I think we would do that with a lot of our hands had we raised. Now, villain 5 checks here. I would assume he would have continued betting his sets and 2 pairs. Maybe even most of his top pairs. So I'm going to say ace, king, ace, jack probably bets. Maybe even ace 10 and all the other aces check. And then he's got checks with all of those. I'm going to assume open-ender straight would have continued betting as well. So I think that's going to be his checking range. Now for us, with all of our hands that would be in our range, I think now we come out firing. Again, we fire middle pair. We fire a weak pair. He's showing weakness. I think we're going to be doing it with all of our gut shots as well. Oops, let's get our colors right. And then our no-made hands. I think king jacks are all part. That's all part of our gut shot. Same thing, 10-8s. I think we're probably just going to be firing out the rest of those. So I think here we're going to be betting basically all of them. Weak pair is going to be more for a bluff. I think middle pair is just the only value, and I think we're going to go for value because maybe he calls king jack, king 10 just for gut shots. So what do? I did bet, which is good. So that would be those hands. I think my size is appropriate. Maybe I could go up to 14 and make a pot size bet. But that's about 2/3 pot. So I bet and he calls. So what is he going to call? I do think he's probably going to be calling with all of his top pairs still. Probably the kings, probably the middle pair, probably jacks and 10s. I think weak pair is probably just going to give up. No pair hand's going to give up. So we're making this play with the expectation that he's folding, geez, over 60% of the time, which I think most people do, which is why this play works so well. So he calls. River's a 6 of spades. That's, of course, a 6 could connect. Did he check to us? Yes, he did. He checked to us. At this point, question is, what hands will he now check call? 2 pair, probably check call. Top pairs, check call. Kings, if he called on the turn, I think he'd probably call with kings again and complain. And same thing with the queens. I think he gives up jacks and 10s. So I think 81% is what he's going to be calling with. Maybe he has jack 10 that he called with on the straight. But did he have that? Let's get the rest of this. Where's the open ender? Yeah, he should have had jack 10 in the calling range here. So when he gets there, he does have, yeah, he's got more hands. So he's only folding about 24% of the time. Means we have to make a real small bet to kind of realize our equity at that point. I mean, I should say not realize our equity, but to make it a plus EV bet here for the bet. So when he checks, what do we bet? I'm not sure if we could bet much. I think we should. Maybe we go for, I think middle pair we go for value. I think weak pairs, any weak pair we probably go for value because I don't see hands that beat us folding. I think the hands we go for some bluff value with are these like weak, really weak cards. So obviously we can fire again if we think he's going to be able to fold. If he can fold like kings and queens, then I think it makes more sense to start betting these weaker pairs on us. So you know, with the weaker pairs, we would turn like king 9 into a bluff, jack 9 into a bluff, possibly all of these into a bluff. That we're betting 41%, and probably even the nothing. So we're looking at like 75%. We're betting just as a bluff if we think he's going to be folding high percentage of the time. Here, I'm not so sure. So what do? I check behind. It kind of makes sense. I've got a value hand. I've got top pair. I don't expect him to be calling with a whole lot of worse. Well, I do. Kings and queens is what I expect him to call with. So what happens? He shows ace jack of diamonds. I had ace jack of diamonds. Is ace jack in his range? No, I don't, because I assumed he would have continued betting on that turn instead of him checking. So that's actually kind of interesting. I don't know if I took a note. Nope. Got played turn draw aggressively, which suggests that if he had jack 10, he would have continued betting the turn. So I miss this hand. I take some notes on him. Kind of my expectation of how he would play the ace jack. I mean, and maybe that's a good play because he could possibly have ace king. But I think if I have ace king, that's a bad play just to call. I think even with ace queen, it's kind of a bad play just to call. So we kind of go back to 3-bet call range, or just a 3-bet range. I've got ace queen as a raising range. I know people don't, but all right. So over this hand, I'm disappointed I didn't raise. I think raising would have given us a way to win the pot. So we raise the flop and then we bet again on the turn. Ace jack's gonna have a hard time calling there. She's gonna have to give me credit for ace queen or maybe even ace king. Definitely a high ace. At that point, he's just hoping that he splits the pot that I have ace jack, because I don't think ace 10 is going to play it that strongly. So I think I missed out on some value by not raising the flop. A little unfortunate that we split the pot, but I think my play would have been better had I raised. All right, hopefully you enjoy this. If you do, look tomorrow for another.